Barcelona. So we're not at happy hour yet. I haven't started drinking. I'm still, you know, having my stash of coffee. I'm gonna share my screen. Let me know. Okay. Okay. Let me know when you guys can see my screen. Give me a thumbs up if you can see it. Awesome. Okay. So thank you so much, Dan and Aki and everyone there from More Space for Light inviting me to this talk today. Let's see. My name is Cecilia Tom. I'm actually not Spanish. If you can't tell that I'm not Spanish, I am all over the map. I'm from Hong Kong, grew up in Hong Kong, studied in the US, landed in Barcelona, and have been here for almost 20 years. And I am the founder and co-founder. We have actually two more founders of Futurity Studio. We're a future-focused research and design venture studio. I just realized this is a mouthful. I probably have to reduce this. We do a lot of different things, and I'm going to tell you guys a little bit of what we do. But we have a very clear vision, which is to help others and to teach other people as well to build better futures faster. So that is our goal, that is our mission. We work with different organizations, naming here a few, work with Program, NASA, and also private companies to help them envision these futures. So I wanted to kind of walk you through a little bit. The future study isn't really a new domain space, but it has been transforming over the years. And it started with looking at the future and just predicting the futures and trends and whatnot. And that kind of transitioned into once you can predict it, people started making different alternative futures so that they can start planning for those different scenarios. And once those techniques have been mastered, they started creating tools so that we can shape those futures. And what's really exciting for me is that we are now at this place in time where we can actively build the futures that we want. And this is what we wanted to aim towards, is how can we all participate and co-create these futures together. So I call myself a futures synthesist, and it's not really a term that is used. You might probably have heard of like futurists or futurologists and even forecasters, but there's a reason for us naming, using the word synthesis. And so you look at the word analysis, right? Analysis is, when you break things apart and so that you can understand the different parts as individual. And we do analysis too in what we do. But what's also really interesting for us is to the other component of it, which is to synthesize. And to synthesize is you put these different parts back together to form a whole. And we kind of, dwelled on this word synthesize, because when you decouple something and you put them back together, you can put in new ways that you have never seen before. And that gives you new ideas and new concepts and new possible ways of working. And so we really wanted to hone in on this idea of taking things apart and putting back together in new ways and forms. And so, like I mentioned before, synthesizing future and what we do now really isn't about, recreating something new. We have been building on massive body of work and insights from other people, and this is a kind of a schematic understanding of this ecosystem, from business strategy, so forecast strategists and analysts and futurists, to the more technical research aspect of it, the scientists and the engineers, and then to the more kind of a cultural and design and art aspect, creative aspect of this, and that includes speculative designers and futurists. And we really ride on these giants in order to do our work. And so, thankful to a lot of their insights, we built a body of work as a synthesis. And so that's what future synthesis is, and this is what we do. And a lot of times in our office, once you have that methodology, that is like the engine, right? But you still need the content, and you still need to feed the ingredients in this engine. And so at our work at Futurity Studio, we have built a kind of a three-pronged system where we take this methodology, which we call synthesizing future, and we have these tools, and which is these card games that they're like like inputs that feeds into this methods, and which produce different exploration for us. So right now we have 4 verticals of exploration: the future of food, the future of commerce, the future of gender inequality, and the future of neural interface. And I'll give you a little bit of examples of some of these exercises or the explorations in these labs that we have done. And so that's a little bit the way we approach this. And so every lab, every vertical, so for example, in the future of food or future of commerce, we start this new lab in this cycle. We do a lot of research understanding the space and the area. With this research, we create insight and we create what we're calling future artifacts. And then output the actions that we wanted to come out of from those explorations. And that is one of our cycle. So I want to show you some of the output that we have done. And this is one of my favorite projects. And it looked into the future of food, and we call this polygenomic plantable meals. And basically, in this particular project, we were looking at the future of food and the potential of how we can use tomatoes as a bioreactor to culture meat. So basically using the scaffolding structure of tomato to culture meat cells inside. And we call plantable meals. And the concept is that can we actually plant the whole entire meal? Meaning like you have the garlic, you have the onions, you have the meat, and then you have the tomato, like the salsa bolognese that we all know of, but like in one plant. Is that a possible future that we want, where we can, save on packaging and everything is, is in one singular plant that can be grown at your house, right? So obviously this is a speculative piece, but it's based on evidence that we can already grow. We can already scientists have already been able to culture meat cells into plants, like in spinach leaves and grapes. It's a process called decellularization. Sorry, excuse me. Another project that I actually love all of these projects. I don't have a favorite projects, but this is another one. It's called electronic edibles. And so you can pass electricity on your tongue to induce taste. So on the diagram on your right, you can see on the tip of your tongue, you can induce sweetness, on the side is salt, on the back is bitterness. And so depending on the intensity and the placement, you can induce these tastes. So we created this electronic tongue sleeve that you put on your tongue, so that you can taste different senses without actual eating food itself. So the thinking behind this is that could we create a whole line of electronic food where we separate the pleasure of eating from the kind of the nutrition and the materialization of eating, so that we're not wasting food or even wasting calories when we're eating. Another project is the vapor hole, and this is on the same line of electronic food, where we wanted to replicate the experience of scents, and also vapor hole as in vaping alcohol. And so here, we were playing with how the senses of smell could be captured by vapor. You can smell it, so you can literally vape a gin and tonic without getting super drunk, but have all of the pleasure of drinking the gin. And also we were testing on some visualizations where we can project an image. So now you have the sense of taste, you have the sense of smell, you also have the visual of the food, and really kind of recreating the experience of eating without actually having any food substance there. So that's vapor hole. There's the fluid farm. This project came about, I love plants. I love plants. And we were doing this exploration of the future of plants and plant rights. And so we thought, well, what if we give plants autonomy? So imagine an autonomous vehicle plus a plant, and that the plant can make decisions on its own and say, I want sunlight right now, and so it goes to the sun. I want water right now, I'll go to the water. I want to take a selfie with someone and charge $1 and keep that money. So make whatever decisions that the plant can have, or even imagine that you can plant tomatoes here, and then the plant could decide whether to sell that tomato and keep that money on its own. So really trying to understand the potential of what happens if the plants in the future have such an autonomy and rights and power. Sometimes we do things that involve other people. So these are, we really wanted to get people's opinion on, this hybrid invention that we have invention in the future. So in our labs, although we don't have a wet lab to make these tomatoes, we surgically recreated the experience. We really wanted to kind of get people feedback on what happens if we do have a tomato in the market. Would you buy it? How much would you buy it? And would you eat it? And it was a really interesting exercise, because some people actually find it repulsive that they see a plant with meat inside grown together. And so this is the kind of feedback that we want when we do prototyping and really getting the experience replicated and the insights that we need to continue with these projects. So I want to spend a little bit of time to kind of walk you through, from research to artifact to action cycle. And this is probably one of our more mature projects that we've been working on over the last 2 years. We started this at Alpha Telefonica. And this was our exploration on the future of commerce. And I'm going to explain a little bit what that means. So a lot of what we do is we kind of understand the evolution of how things change over time. So if we look at commerce, if we really want to understand, where commerce comes from and how it has been evolving, commerce was commerce. You go to the shop, traditional commerce, you go to the shop, you exchange money for goods, you bring home the goods, and that's, that's the transaction that we had. But then we all know that e-commerce came about. All of a sudden, that shifted the way we transact and make exchange. All of a sudden, you no longer have to wait for the store to open. You can buy things whenever we want through the interface of a laptop, right? And different businesses sprung out from that e-commerce boom, where you have Amazon, you have PayPal, you have these companies that wouldn't have existed before. That's nothing new. And that then evolved into mobile commerce, where all of a sudden you have transaction capabilities on your hands, and it really pushed forward companies like Uber that could make transactions on the fly in real time in the locations that they need. And without mobile phones, you won't be able to have companies like Uber succeeding, because they really need the kind of in real time location-based type of transaction. And that shifted also, that opened up a whole different type of companies and paradigm in terms of transaction. So our job is to really look at, well, okay, this had happened, these different steps of evolution had happened. What's going to happen in the future? And we call this A-commerce, which stands for autonomous commerce. So what exactly is autonomous commerce, right? So autonomous commerce basically is very much based on this future that is based on machine economy. And machine economy is when intelligent, autonomous, networked machines have the ability to exchange with each other. And capable of making these transactions. And for the second time, and now I explain why it's the second time, not the first time. It's the second time in our history that an autonomous market participant that is not human can make these transactions and have transaction power with limited or no human interventions. So the first time this had happened was companies. So companies as an entity have the ability to make these transactions, and our market participants and are non-human. So we have precedent in this world. We can look into how companies adapted to this type of transition, and likewise, same thing would happen as we migrate into the machine economy. So let me give you an example of what that looks like, right? So imagine I have a self-driving car, and you have a self-driving car. And my self-driving car, we're both in the highway, and I'm in a hurry. I can say to you, my self-driving car as a machine can negotiate with your self-driving car and say, hey, I'll pay you $20 and you move over. And so that would be a transaction among machineries, not knowing as a human, not knowing what's going on, but I will give my machine a certain level of autonomy. So that would be an example. Another example of this is in food, where, for example, if I have a smart wallet and I walk into a smart supermarket, and they might negotiate, if I pick up an apple and the apple will expire, they might negotiate amongst themselves and say, hey, I'm going to give you 50% off this apple if you buy it now. So there are many other case studies that people are already looking at how this could be applicable in insurance, and you can already see, in the future where you have autonomous vehicles getting into car accidents, they could already settle the claim there and then and there at the moment of the accident, because all of this will be transacted among machines. So all of these things will be disrupted again. This is nothing new. We have seen the disruption in e-commerce. We've seen the disruption in m-commerce, and the a-commerce, the payment, buyers, sellers, all of these things will be again disrupted. The question is, how will it be disrupted, and how can we prepare ourselves for that kind of disruption? So we have looked at how it's going to impact your household, for example, right? If you have all of these drones and all of these delivery bots bringing food to your house, your appliances might have to really be redesigned. So maybe in the future, instead of having you have access to the refrigerator from the inside, maybe there's also access to the refrigerator from the outside, where all of these machineries can interact directly and transact with your appliances, from refrigerators to ovens to your closet to your trash. All of these things that have input output will need to have some ability to communicate and to transact with the outside, these outside bots. So, not only will you see the shift in terms of how these paradigms will be adopted, I'm going to give you also an example of how business models will also be shifted, right? So I'm going to use an example of music here. So in the old days, in the traditional commerce, you have people going into the store and buying things, right? And you buy the whole entire album, the whole entire disc with 12 songs. But that migrated to e-commerce, and in iTunes, all of a sudden you can buy one song, 99 cents. I still remember that, and all you have to do is just buy that one song, and you have access to that one song. And then that shifted to a subscription base, and all of a sudden you pay for a subscription, and you have access to all of the music, endless music forever that you can even listen to. So the question is, well, in the autonomous commerce era, what business model will shift? And so we're looking at, in this future when technology is migrated into AI generated content, what business model will have to shift in order to accommodate for that level, that different technology, right? And so while music is an example, music was really easily transferred into a digital good. But what about things that have, bits and atoms like food, right? How is that going to shift? And so, we still go to market. I love going to food markets, but we're starting to see the transition into the e-commerce, where, one of the reasons why Amazon bought Whole Foods in the US is because they really wanted to be in this space and kind of look into how this transaction of this evolution of commerce will exist, right? And so what's going to happen next can we imagine there's such a thing as the Spotify for food, and what does that look like, and how would that evolve, and what would generated food looks like? And so here a little bit our exploration is the electronic tongue, the kind of replicating the experience of food without food itself, how that might become part of the evolution of this exploration. So there the outcome of this is that we've looked into how our kitchen might transform. I'm not going to go into details of this, but I wanted to give an idea of some of the things that we're looking at, and how our kitchen might shift. The infrastructure of our household might have to also transformed. Our appliances will have to transformed, and how our infrastructure below ground might also need to be adapted for these new technologies that are up and coming. Yeah. So I want to jump into synthesizing futures quickly, because I'm already running out of time, but it's okay. Okay, so synthesizing future is our kind of way of methodologies of
not running out of time.
No, we're good. Okay. I still have a lot of slides.
You're the boss. You do. I mean, there's
I
like
love
heaps
it.
of conversation going on here. People want Spotify for wine. I just mentioned that maybe we could do some
Spotify
sort of
for it.
faxing of Domino's pizzas. So
Oh,
your
awesome.
spot to
Okay, I
sort of
can't see
keep
the
going.
chat, so okay, great. So synthesizing future is really our way to kind of, understand and create a methodology to explore all of these different areas. So what is synthesizing futures? And I see that some of the students that are taking the class, they're here and they have even probably done the first step or the second step. So I'm so sorry, it might be boring to you, but I'm going to repeat a little bit. So it's actually really simple. And there are 4 things that we want to create. And the 4 things are, we're creating a map, we're creating a story, we're creating an object, and we're creating a plan. And I'm going to go dive deeper into these 4 different things. And so when we're talking about future, and we're talking about anything, actually, an exploration of anything, the first thing that we wanted to do is create a kind of understanding of what that space look like, that landscape, right? And so and here we use different techniques. There's and I have to say that the synthesizing, I'm going to go back into this, recognizing that a lot of what we're doing now, we learn from, experts, and we learn from renowned futurists, and we borrow their tools and kind of made a few of our own tools so that we can, really learn from what they have done. So the futures wheel is one of the exercises that I absolutely love. I will share the white paper later with those that are interested. But this is a technique that came about probably in the 90s, and so we're borrowing this, but in a very future-driven scenario of mapping what the consequences of things will be in the future. And I'm going to walk you through, because this is precisely the activity that we will be doing towards the end of the talk. The second thing that we want to do is build a story. And so here I'm going to give 2 examples. This is a particular story that we have written, and so we created a fictitious character that is a bot, and the bot is actually writing about his coworker, what a pain in the ass we are. And it is from a very, very different perspective of understanding the future of work and what it means to exist, human bot, coexistence in the workplace. That particular story actually came about this, we had this technique when we were at Alpha that I took this magazine, which is we took a real-time magazine. This was in 2019. And that particular magazine looked at the social problems of migration. And we took out all the words from migrants and we replaced the word with machines. And so instead of, why the forces of global migration can't be stopped about migrants, we looked at how, if possible, there might be social issues with bots, and how can we understand those social issues. So by simply replacing that word and exploring all potential, stories behind that kind of line of thinking, we looked at potential social problems that might arise in the future just by writing these stories. The third thing that we will do in the synthesizing future will be creating the object, which we call future artifacts. And so here, I'm bringing Herbie back because he's my favorite pet now, and he has a name, and he lives here in the office. And and we're going to be giving Herbie, some autonomy soon, learning how to build autonomous toy cars so that he can navigate on his own and maybe follow me a little bit. So we built these artifacts as a way to kind of understand and give us insights and feedback on the limitations, both from a user standpoint, but also from the functionality standpoint. And then a plan to work backwards to see if this is a particular future in 20 years. Well, what do we need to do now? What do we need to do, a year from now, 10 years from now, for that particular future to happen? So that's synthesizing future in a nutshell, there are, I stopped counting how many steps there are. I think there are about 16 steps altogether. But the idea is to have an end-to-end goal and end up with a materials that you can work with and try to, envision and strategize what that future that you're trying to explore looks like. So let me see. So why are we doing this? So I'm really invested in trying to democratize and to increase the proficiency in global future literacy, because I find that we're lacking the vocabulary, we're lacking the tools, we don't really teach this in school. And there are some universities starting to have kind of emergent futures programs, but it's still not a mainstream thing. And I think that this is definitely a skill set that everyone should have. But I also want to take this and push it one step further and saying that this is not just about building the vocabulary to be able to talk about it, but this is about upskilling ourselves to be able to make and proactively create the futures that we want. So it's this kind of like first learn how to speak about it and then learn the tools to make those futures, and how can we do this together as a community. The second thing is that futures is for everyone. So it's not just my future, it's not your future, but it's a future exploration for everyone. And we're looking into how can we build a library of open source body of explorations that everyone else have explored and that we can be inspired by. So imagine if we were to build a Google for futures, and what would that look like, and how can we learn from each other? So those are my, my goal for 2021 and 2022, I guess. We are, if you're interested in this, some of my students are here, so they can recommend or not recommend the class. But if you want to learn about future synthesizing, there's a course that just got published in Domestika that is only 2.5 hours long. It will give you an overview and an intro on how to do this. We are working on publishing a book with examples, concrete examples, going to be publishing on Kickstarter at the end of May. Hope to build this community. And lastly, we're trying to gather and create a community on Discord. So we will be opening up to that real soon, and exchange ideas and really build on this library of synthesizing futurists that we want to have. So that's that. Are you guys ready for an activity? How are we doing? Yeah, we're good.
We're doing good. So we're ready if you're ready.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the futures wheel is actually step two. Well, not step two. It's step one, but a sub-step of step one. And so and when we're doing these activities, the first thing that we do is we come up with a starting point, and we have a technique for that. But today, just for the sake of time, we're going to skip that, and I will give you a starting point from where we can do the futures wheel from. So the futures wheel is actually super simple. You start thinking about, the first thing that you do is you think about the first order of consequences, and what is that? And so we usually give you a seed, and so or you can come up with a seed. And so you want to explore, say, for example, you want to explore how AI will impact climate change. And that goes in the middle. And then the first order of consequences, you have to brainstorm what are the positive consequences that can come out of this. And then you think of two negative consequences that will come out of that same seed, right? I'll give you an example. So don't worry about this being confusing. Sometimes things are not so clear cut whether they will be good or bad, and that's okay. You can just color code that in gray. And the reason why we color code this is because when we do this map, and sometimes they become super expansive and with many, many different nodes, you will start seeing, groups of green or groups of reds, and those will be places where you find opportunities. And even things that are a body of, when you see an area of red, those could also be opportunities, because then you can you can design the solutions for those things. Yeah. So to give you an example, let's say that we wanted to look at the future of autonomous vehicle being mainstream. So they're everywhere. There's no more, people won't be driving anymore. It's just all autonomous vehicles. What does that world look like? So the first order of consequences, there should be things that are really obvious, right? So here, can you guys see my cursor? Yeah, you see my cursor moving around? Okay, so in that world, obviously you'll have far fewer accidents. Great, that's a good thing, right? So you have it in green. The changes in the roads, because you're gonna have to adapt to these autonomous vehicles, right? You might not, the roads won't be painted white because you don't, they would know where to go. You don't need to have that directions anymore. But then what about question of liability? If there is an accident and it runs over someone, who's liable for this, and how can you manage that type of liability? And then on this side, I have no driving. So once you have an autonomous vehicle, I'm in the car and I don't need to drive anymore. I think that's a good thing. Some people think it's bad because they like to drive, but I think it's a good thing because I absolutely hate driving. The car design would have to change. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's there. And then you can also imagine, I put here non-autonomous vehicles clashing. So that means like, well, if you have autonomous vehicles in the car, in the streets, and you have people that refuse to use autonomous vehicles and they kept their car, and there will be a period of time when there is an overlap. How do you manage that overlap, right? So that was my kind of first obvious few things that thought of in my head when we're looking into autonomous vehicles. So now I want you guys to break out into your breakout rooms. As I was saying earlier, I came up with 9 separate seeds that you guys can start exploring. And I'm just going to go through really quickly what those things are. And these are my favorite topics. So I can't wait to see what you guys have done. So the first one is longevity. So what happens if humans can live until 200 years old? The second one is living on Mars, and so going to live there in space settlement, and so not just for astronauts, but if not, it's democratized, meaning that it's easy for us to go and live in Mars, and the infrastructure had already been set in place. The third thing is gender as a spectrum. So no longer do we just describe people as male or female, if not the whole entire spectrum of female, male, trans, cis, pangendered, and we no longer have to kind of separate people by the binary labels. The fourth one is city-state dominance. So what happens when country borders start to disintegrate, and then you have the importance really are the cities. How would we navigate into that world? The fifth one, I love this one, animal cognition, which means non-human animals being able to communicate with us and with themselves and have a level of intelligence. 6 is machine economy. I have already explained that, so I'm not going to repeat. The 7 is what happens if we can de-extinct Neanderthals? What if we can bring them back in our society? Would we consider them as human, subhuman? What would that world look like? The 8th is I'm calling it the new nomad. And so, pushing really this autonomous vehicle, but one step further. But what if we can have autonomous trailer homes, and some of us who wants to live as a nomadic style can have this way of living. And the last one is brain computer interface. So being able to control machines with our mind and vice versa. So you have 7 minutes to do your first order of consequences. I suggest I think there's one single map in Mural. So you can go in there and maybe find the group that you're interested in, a topic that you're interested in, and start populating. And I would even suggest, if you have ideas for other groups, why not pop some ideas on there as well. So
okay,
go for it.
Cecilia, I've broken your system. So what I've done is I've been sitting here juggling away and putting people in breakout rooms.
Awesome.
And what I've done is I've named each of the breakout rooms. So everybody here, all of you, you've all been skipping in and out, and I've got you all assigned to a topic. And the breakout room name topic indicates what futures will to go to first of all. So we're going to put you in there for 7 minutes, have your discussion. If you get exhausted, feel free to pop about, but it just gives you a little, a bit of an anchor. We'll be in the background. So I'm going to set the time in Mural for 7 minutes, and then we'll call you back. Before we send you off, does anybody have any questions? Just pop it in the chat. I'll just give you a minute to put any questions in the chat. Everyone wants the white paper, by the way. Link to Mural from Marika. I love it. Straight down to business. And Shane, link, exclamation mark. All right, there's the link, guys. Go in there. We'll see you all disappear, and I'll set it for 7 minutes once I see you all disappear. Go for it. You're not going. Go. Good. I can see these beautiful animals popping up in there. All right, and then I've got to send you all off into the breakout rooms. I will see you all later. See you in 7 minutes. Lucas, I want you to stick around. You're interesting, man. All right, you're gone. You're okay. Maurizio. I thought I had you. I thought I sent you off. It's just me and you. How are you? How come you haven't gone? I've sent you off. Have I not sent you off? Hey. Where are you? Cecilia, how are you? We've got Mario up the top there. I can't send him off, and I feel mean sending him. Right, I'm going to put everyone in 7 minutes now. He can join us for this discussion. I don't want to send you off and give you a bad experience. You're on the live stream. You're joining us, so feel free to. You get to enjoy. I can't seem to assign you. Okay, how was that? How are you doing? How are you feeling?
Good. What do you think so far?
Cecilia, I have got so many questions. Like the Herbie, I'm just like adding questions as we're going. So I started adding questions about Herbie. I want to know where you started with Herbie. I want to know where you get your research. Like that's some pretty next level stuff. That's just so good. So amazing.
Herbie is fun. I mean, it's interesting because we're giving a lot of intelligence in IoTs. If we have Alexa, we have Google Home, and we're talking to these speakers. But we haven't actually thought about slowly. We're starting to think about, well, what happens if you give these cognition capabilities to plants and non-human things, right? And we have already talked about giving citizenship to bots. So how would that parallel in terms of plants? Like I like to think that plants is actually one step closer to us than bots, but. Yeah,
that's so interesting. It's like, but it's super Black Mirror. Like, have you seen Black Mirror?
Super Black Mirror. Yes,
yeah,
yes, like, every single episode. I would love to write for Black Mirror.
Oh, but you've already got it. I know we were going to focus in on. We were talking about focusing in on the murable, but this is so. Like, I'm fascinated. So how do you get fund? I'm going to ask this question when everyone comes back as well. But how do you get funding for something like that?
We work with companies, so we help companies build those visions as well, and so and there are very industry-specific type of explorations where you're talking about health, you're talking about chemicals, or those specific industries.
Wow, and then this is my friend Trevor. Trevor is somebody who's in the Barossa Valley in Adelaide, and Trevor will. He will be a good guide when you come out to Australia to show you where all the good wineries are in the Barossa.
I can't wait to come back to Australia. love Australia.
And we can see Lucas down the bottom, or Nuria. It was Lucas earlier.
So Lucas is my partner at Futurity Studio. If he wants to turn on his video and say hi. I think he left. He's still there.
He's still
Nuria
there.
as well.
Yeah,
I have my team here.
They were like hard selling it on the chat, and Trevor, I'm going to put you in a room. You got 4 minutes. I'm going to assign you into animal cognition, because I know the new nomad. The new nomad. All right, I'm going to
me in the deep end.
I'm chucking you in there, Trevor. You go.
Yeah,
for it,
no, you're a
buddy.
good man. I love your work.
All right, I'll see you shortly. Awesome. All right, so we got Trevor's gone. Trevor, you'll get something that will pop up that will send you off in a minute. Everyone's got about 3 minutes. Should we have a look at their boards? He's gone.
Yeah.
Do you want
Let's
to
Let's have a
share,
glimpse.
or do you want me to share?
Let's have a quick glimpse because we're gonna come back to the boards in the end. So I don't want to give too much away. Just kind of sort of like how they're doing and.
Well, gender as a spectrum seems to not be going anywhere. Living on Mars, now that's interesting, because with some of the clients we speak to, they talk about moon to Mars, which is something not many people consider.
Moon to Mars.
Mining, moon to Mars. Well, you think it's like the stop off, like mining on Mars. It's pretty mental. Longevity.
Totally. And mining asteroids as well.
Mining asteroids, I know, it's mental. It's like, what's that movie with Bruce Willis? The one with the really bad music, Aerosmith. Hopefully this.
People are loving animal cognition. They're just like going up. I love it.
You inspired them. So I spoke to somebody this morning. Unfortunately, she couldn't join us, and she know who she is because she'll be watching the stream. And they got one of those robot dogs from Boston Robotics.
Boston Dynamics.
Dynamics, that's it. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's just.
Yeah, it's crazy. I would like to have one.
Gosh, how much they cost? They were telling me that you've got to stand 2 meters away from the thing because if it like falls, or say it's going up some stairs and falls,
it flips. Yeah.
Yeah, they look and they like try and dig in.
Yeah, it's like a horse. You want to stay away because they do these back kicks.
Yeah, could you? We've got 1 minute 52 left. I'll just send a broadcast. 1 minute, 1.30 seconds left. So I think if my timing's right, so we started at 8 o'clock Sydney time, and if we go for 75 minutes, so we've got 30 minutes left. So
Great.
That's, yeah. How are you feeling for that, by the way? Is that a good time for you? Yeah.
I'd love to take some questions. I love some questions.
All right. So if you could try and time it for around 15 to 20 minutes, do you reckon that's possible? So we could have 10 minutes of questions.
Okay. Sure.
All right. Awesome.
Sure.
And then I'll finish off. But yeah, I'm like the stuff that you're doing with the speculative design. I love the fact that you've put it into a commercial domain, so it isn't such an arty kind of can't connect, can't go. I find it super interesting.
I think art has this use, obviously, because they put into question their, a lot of times used as a way to critique our society, and it's great. And how do you transfer that, or how do you make this an actionable thing into our everyday lives? Is very, very much interested and very much invested by what we do. Because until you don't get into the hands of the people, it's very hard to make those foundational changes.
That's it, isn't it? It goes super niche, and nobody ever gets to see it until it gets into one of those Tate modern art books where you look at it, and by that time, unfortunately, it's a bit dated. Right, we've got 10 seconds. I'm going to bring everyone
10
back.
seconds. They're doing awesome. Let's get their feedback.
All right. Do you want to bring them back? Do you want to just pull them off the chat? All right. They're all coming back.
Great.
Okay.
I had a doorbell. My doorbell rang.
We've been recording this whole time as well. I was meant to.
Awesome. I can blast it out to everyone.
Here they are. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Smiles. I'll go mute. Cecilia, you can.
Is that fun? I'd love to hear from people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which group do you want to hear from, Cecilia? We'll call some people out. I'll call some out.
It's very fun.
Yeah, let's do the cognition, the animal cognition, because the map looks already pretty crazy.
All right, I'm gonna point to Shane because he has just been he's just been on the chat. So I felt unfair if I didn't ask Shane to say good day and reveal yourself.
G'day, mate. Hello from MC. So we started out with the 2 positive statements. We thought that the cognition provides an understanding between humans and animals. That was one way. And then the negative side, we looked at the animals just like freak out. They become overwhelmed. They tell you they hate you, and how that devolves into actions they might take, collaborate and unionize, and then work as a group against humans. But also primarily to, I think a lot of the explorations, if you look at them, you get things like interspecies cognition, which is a really interesting evolution. And I guess we just got to, the idea of, actually it helps us better understand the environment we live in if we have cognition from animals. But the process was really good. One question I guess we had was, we tried to keep on going green up, red down, but that's not really important anymore. Is that right?
Yes, because we're gonna there's a second and a third thing to this. So this is just the very first level of exploration.
So we could have, like, in your experience, what's the best way to map them? Is it like on horizontal and vertical axes, or it just doesn't matter?
I will show you some examples. They're everywhere. So don't worry about it being, super clean cut. It's a really, it grows exponentially. And sometimes you get ideas, 3 a.m. in the morning, and then you go back and add another point, and that kind of branches out and add, 100 other points. So yeah, I'll show you some examples of what we've done.
And how do you avoid hyperbola? How do you keep each step? Like, how do you not make too big a leap? Like, what's the mental model for not making a huge, too far into the future?
Too far in the future. So in this particular step, we're trying, it's a brainstorming, so it's very divergent. So you're trying to gather as much data as possible. And then in the next one, the next exercise after the futures wheel is understanding where these things happen in your horizon. So you start placing each of this in, is it a near horizon, far horizon, or mid horizon? And we also use the framework of probable futures, impossible futures, and you start categorizing each of these things so that you will quickly see which are the nodes that are more manageable and things that you're interested in, and what are the ones that are much further out in the future that you don't want to kind of attack those particular ones. And so it's a way of organizing the ideas.
Thank you.
Is that a 2x2, Cecilia? Would you do a 2x2? Would you do like horizon, X, and then probable to, plausible to probable?
Hadn't thought of that, but you gave me a great idea. So we're gonna. So it's
copyright it, Aki, straight away. Copyright that.
Love it. So like after futures wheel is the probable, impossible future categorization. So we do that exercise first, and then after that we migrate to the extrapolation of the futures cone, and there you do the different horizons of near, far future. And that exercise, actually, we also look into the past, because you can't really, there's so much that we can learn from the past that we should look at, what had already repeated, right? So if we're looking at, say, for example, your exploration is bots are going to take over all of humans' jobs. That conversation had already happened, in the Industrial Revolution. Everyone thought, they're going to lose their jobs, and they're going to, well, how did they manage that discourse, and what happened, and can we learn from that particular, event of the history? And so, yeah, it's super interesting.
Should we do one more, or do you want to carry on? Because I'm just mindful of time.
Let's move forward, because I think that people are in a role, and I wanna see what they can, what other things they could come up.
All right, let's do it. Over to you. I'm going to mute.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen again. Okay, so we're here. So now once we have done the first order of consequences, we're gonna take another step to the second order of consequences, and this is when things start to get super interesting, right? So the second order of consequences is exactly the same as the first one, except that you're using the nodes that you have already planted, and you think about the consequences of those things. Yeah. So here I'm only gonna do the top two, because if not, the map gets really filled and you won't be able to see it. So here if you have fewer accidents, you can imagine that there will be far less fines. And so having far less fines means that there will be a decrease in revenue for the government. And so here I wanted to point out that some of the things that you think is a positive outcome might actually have negative consequences, and some negative consequences one might also lead to a positive consequences one. So really force yourself to think through what could happen out of this exploration, right? So here's another example where if in the future of autonomous vehicle and I don't need to drive, well, all of a sudden I can drink. I don't have a problem drinking, I promise. But now that people can now drink in the car, and you can imagine the opportunities that can come up with. And not only can you drink behind the car, you can work behind the car, inside your car. You can live inside the car. And this is one of the ideas that came about for the autonomous trailer home, where you can retrofit the car into your nomadic house, and you can live anywhere. No longer is it grounded in one place, right? Here I have a negative note here of if there's no driving, and if it's going, what if my car has been hacked and it's taking me to a place that I don't want to go, or worse yet, it is going to take me to someone that's gonna what do you call that when they keep you and you can't go away? There's a word for that, when they kidnap you. That's right, and you're losing control, and that could happen, right? Once you're no longer in control of your car, and it's going to take you to places that you don't want, what will happen? And so that's another exploration. So as you're doing this, you can see that it becomes more, you will have more and more of these nodes that will come about, and it branches out, and your map will become very, very, very rich. And so there's also another thing that we do, and sometimes we call it adjacencies, and sometimes we call it randomizing, and they're essentially the same thing. And so this is when you start making what we call constructive chaos. So let's say that you're looking at you're looking at computing, some form of computing. So we had this exploration of like, okay, you have this portable computer, right? Which is not very interesting. But we wanted to kind of like think, I hate this word, but like think outside the box. How can we push ourselves to think further? And so we changed the word. And so the word changed from portable to foldable computer. So that's not very interesting, right? This is basically a laptop. But then we changed the word from foldable to edible computer. And you'll be like, well, why in the world would we want to eat a computer? But that wasn't the point. The point is to have more ideas. And the idea that is coming out from edible computer is that can we use biocomputing or biomaterials for computer parts so that they are far more sustainable, or even yet that they have a more circular economic cycle. And that opened up a different exploration for us. So another example of this was where Herbie came from, actually. So we often make parallels in our ideas, right? So looking at driverless car, so this is autonomous vehicle. Can we have farmerless farm? And so if you give autonomy to a farm and you no longer need farmers, what does that look like? And that was the basis of Herbie and the fluid farm. And so here I'm going to show you some of the explorations that we have. As you can see, it goes crazy in a good way. But then here you can identify spots where, let's say we go back into this particular. Here, for example, if you're looking at this, you can start seeing opportunities, right? So all of a sudden, if you no longer need to drive, what potential business opportunity can you imagine? Could you put a co-working on wheels, and all of a sudden you have a potential business model in the future that currently is not doable, but you can do this in the future. Likewise, what other, if you take a risk, for example, liability, well, could we imagine a new way to insure autonomous vehicles, and what does that look like? And so the mapping of the future's wheel is really to serve us a kind of a navigational tool to understand, well, what opportunities are out there, what risks are out there that we need to find a solution for. Here's another one. It's so small that I can't even remember what explorations that we have done, but But the fun part is that if you do this with other people, you will see different perspective, and some of the things that you expect to be a positive thing might be a negative thing for others. And then I can't emphasize this enough, but the need to have multiple perspectives, the need to have multiple point of views is an absolute requirement when you're doing these exercises, because your assumptions is very limited to your worldview when futures are the futures have to be explored inclusively. So with that in mind, we're going to do this again, except that this time I want you guys to really push, not guys, everyone. I need to like change my words of use. So I want everyone to start exploring, you know, what second consequences, what tertiary consequences that might come about with the mapping exercises that we're doing at Mural, and even think about, maybe push yourself a little further and think of those adjacencies or even those replacement words that give you even more ideas and even more out of the box thinking. So should we go back to the breakout room?
Yeah, okay, so for this one, because again, I'm mindful of time, a few people have dropped out and we've got about 15, 20 minutes left, just under.
Okay.
What if you find this a good idea, so obviously you're the boss, Cecilia, I was going to suggest, even though we put people in breakout rooms, even though we put them in breakout rooms, if they want to just explore the board, they can do that.
I think that's a great idea.
But we've got you guys in breakout rooms, so maybe start in the breakout rooms and then take the people with you and go on an exploration around the board and have a conversation. And what we'll do is we'll just give you 5 minutes this time. We'll give you 5 minutes.
Perfect. Yeah.
So just start in your group, have a bit of a play. Be careful, Shane's put some drawings on there, so make sure you negotiate those heels and you get over those bumps well, and just get in and just start exploring. So we'll give you 5 minutes this time, and then we'll come back and close out and have some questions. All right, so I'm going to send you all off. There you are. Hey guys.
Hello.
I
went super well.
I'm loving it. So like we like time's against us, but that's cool. I'm so selfish here. You have explained the futures world so well, you know, because I'm like an octopus at the moment, doing all these different things. But I love the fact you use colors to color code insights. You take stuff like Shane's just like gone nuts in the middle there. He's like doing different quadrants.
Great.
But
I love it.
How do you know, like, so say for instance we're running a workshop tomorrow and there's going to be some things that come out of autonomous minds, for example, autonomous sight. Is that a premise to start a futures work? Like, how do you see the middle part? Like, where does that come from usually?
So we have this technique to imagine what those potential starting points are. There's this book called The Beautiful Question, and I love it because it's the whole future space for me. It's not about knowing the right answers. It's actually knowing the right questions to ask. And so the starting point is important because, being able to ask the right question is, changes the whole entire mapping exercise, right? So for us, we start with 4 different lenses. So we looked at the technology as a lens. We look at problem and challenges as a lens. So a typical technology could be like machine learning and AI could be one. A typical challenge and problem space could be climate change or privacy. And then we also have 2 other lenses. The third one that we looked at is the business lens. So is there a business opportunity to this that we haven't explored yet? So that could be the share economy, that could be a subscription model or peer-to-peer. And then the last one is the what I call futures. And so these are more aspirational and more personal and ambitious. And so they'll be like, my personal favorite future is like, I don't want to work anymore. What happens? That would be one dot of exploration. And then what we do is, because I really like this concept of constructive chaos, we start combining these things. Meaning, like, can we think about a particular seed where we take, say, for example, subscription? Can we use a subscription model, say, to solve climate change? I mean, that's a dumb example, but you can imagine if you start combining these seeds that may or may not be relevant, then you might have an interesting combination that we haven't thought of. And so one of the really interesting, the more recent and surprising seed that we came up with was with one of our clients was, what happens if you have a subscription model for chemicals? What if you cannot own chemicals, that you lease it, you lease chemicals and you have to return it? And so that forced us to think about a more circular economy in the chemical industry. And from there, we drew the map of that world.
That's awesome. Awesome. So I'm going to ask this question again because it's such a good answer. But so we've got 45 seconds left. So you start, is the book by Warren Berger, by the way? Beautiful question.
I'm really bad with names, but I think so. If I see let me see. Give me 1 second. Beautiful question. Oh, I can't find the book.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I'm going to call them back in a minute. So we've got 10 minutes left. I'll let you close
Warren
off.
Berger.
Yeah.
Warren
sweet.
Berger.
Yeah, got it. I've got it. Awesome. So I'm going to bring everyone back. We've got about 10 minutes. So I'm going to ask that question once you close out, if that's cool, because it's such an interesting.
Yes.
All right. Hey guys, welcome back.
How was that? What was that like? Was that fun?
Short.
Everyone's still smiling. Short. But we'll keep that open. So we'll keep that URL open if you want to reshare it. So you've got the link. We're not going to reset the links. Please go in, have a play. We really like the whole point of this is for you to get used to these different tools and have a play. This is like a safe space for you guys to get to grips with these tools and figure out how you can apply them in your work. So I'll hand back over to Cecilia.
I love this tool. This is one of my favorite exercises. I'm passionate about everything. So I don't have a favorite step. Let's put it that way. All of them are, great kids for me. But I wanted to say that, while today we pick these kind of far future themes, you can use the same tool to explore, say, your own future and say, where do I want to be 20 years from now? Imagine that particular future and then map it out and see the landscape of what's to come and the consequences of that. You can use it for your company to decide on the trajectory of where you want it to head towards. You can use it for pretty much anything that you want. And the second thing I want to also mention with this particular futures wheel is that you can always, so the rest of the steps after the futures wheel goes deeper and deeper into the object. And so what's the beauty of this is that once you have the map done, you can always go back and say, hey, I wanted to explore another spot. I wanted to look into another spot. I want to expand in another spot, you can always go back to it. And it is your guiding light. It is your kind of vision of what that particular area of interest looked like. So yeah, definitely is something to keep in your adding to it. It's a new form of a journal, let's say, to keep your, to understand the future space.
Awesome. So,
Awesome.
Cecilia,
Thank you.
Oh God, thank you there. Also, so do you want, before I hand over to questions, is there anything that you want to close out? Do you want to explore, have a look at the mural map? How do you want to push?
How much time do we have left?
We have about 8 minutes. Or we have as long
8
as
minutes.
we want, but everybody's just put 8 minutes. So
I wanna jump into questions. I would love to hear comments, suggestions, and even questions that you guys might have. So why don't we use that time for that?
Okay, so I'm going to ask people to put their questions in the chat, and whilst people are putting their questions in the chat, so we'll call them out, Arky and myself, I'm going to ask you a question which people would have missed whilst they were off, and that was, where do you start, like with the futures wheel? What is typically, how do you get that seed and put it in the middle?
So before the futures wheel, we also have one step before that, and we call that finding the starting point. And we look at 4 different verticals of lenses per se. The first one is through the technological lens. So typical node would be something like artificial intelligence or machine learning or nanotechnology. And then the second lens we looked at is the challenge and the problems. And so the typical one could be, climate change or plastic or privacy. And then the third one is business models. And so that could be a peer-to-peer, or it could be a share economy, or it could be subscription, whatever interests you most. And then the last one is the future space. And this one is a little bit more nebulous and vague, but here's where I put things that I want to see. So for example, I was using I don't want to work anymore. What does that look like? A future of no work, or a future where, female are leading 90% of the government and CEOs and whatnot. So that particular space is meant for that. And so then what we do is we introduce also, again, the constructive chaos. So we start to mix and match these different things and see if there are potential seeds. And so you can imagine hey, can we understand the chemical industry through a subscription model, basically that you would lease chemicals instead of buying them, and what does that look like? And that could be a potential seed where you can start exploring.
That's awesome, and that's really interesting. I've got a couple of questions in the chat, but I just want to continue that theme because you give us some really practical, actionable advice. And I just want to ask you, in regards to the research component, are there typical tools you use for identifying and evaluating trends and drivers?
I don't know if they're typical tools. We have definitely tools that we use to understand, to look at trends. And we use the 3 prongs as our guiding light. And so a lot of times when we're doing research, we looked at how many white papers have been published in that particular topic, or research papers or academic papers that have been done. And that would give us a kind of what we're calling, we have this 3 horizon framework. And the first horizon is, if you have an idea, can you even do it? Is it scientifically possible? And so if you look at the scientific paper, it will give you hints and evidence whether that is possible or not. The second thing after you've done that is whether once you're able to do it, can you, it's an engineering question. Can you scale it? Can you build it? Can you make it, right? And so there we look at sources like popular media like Forbes, like Wired, and see if startups have been building companies based out of that technology. And then you can also get a sense of people are building this, and they're moving to that direction. And the last one is the business. Can you build a sustainable business out of that? And there it's a business model question. And so we use these 3 kind of validation points to kind of get us through understanding a particular area of interest could have a higher potential of success, let's say, identifying the blue ocean that we need. I'm not explaining myself very well here, I'm sorry.
No, you totally are. You totally are.
Yeah.
You're talking about looking at scientific papers to see if it's actually viable, and then you start to come back and look at from a commercial aspect from Forbes. That's super interesting. So you've actually got that media sense on it in terms of the desirability and how it hit market. So I've got one last question I'm going to ask you before we ask you our typical questions, and this has come up a couple of times in the chat, and people have reframed it in different ways, but I mean, all this stuff talking about futures and looking at Herbie, that's really, you could say, is quite speculative. What have been some of your biggest challenges that you've seen when you go into an organisation that isn't future mature, and especially has more of a focus on short-term ROI? How have you overcome those type of challenges and change mindset?
So because companies tend to be myopic, because they do have to address issue. You know, it is a business, and they have to somehow come up with the money to pay all of the employees. And I understand that is their immediate goal. One of the biggest challenges that they have a hard time envisioning what the future space is like, and what is the return of investment for that particular future. The higher the risk, and the least interest for them to explore. And so building that vision and creating that and changing that discourse not as a luxury, because a lot of people see future as a luxury, changing that into a need is our job. And by that, I mean, how do you, all of the things that we do in terms of validating this speculative future is so that it builds a vision for the company to be able for them to be convinced that this is something that they should invest in. So that's part of the, I guess, the mapping exercise, the validations, all the research, and all the work that goes behind it. That this isn't about, you know, science fiction. This is about opportunities. And the most important thing that the company needs to change is that they need to shift from being following trends, just like seeing trends, to be a proactive future maker. And so I think a lot of people but a lot of people haven't realized that the future is actually in their hands. They can make it. So the very first prototyping is, if you can imagine it, and if you can validate it, and if you can create it, then you're actually proactively making the future that we want. And so that's the discourse that I would like to, you know, if you don't remember anything that I've said today, remember that.
That's awesome. That's so super interesting. Okay, so I'm mindful of people's time. We have a couple of questions before we close out. First up, like you've given us, again, you've kind of drilled back in and given us really actionable, practical advice in regards to starting point for the wheel, thinking about how we start our research. But also, I'm sure there's many people that are inspired by the types of things that you're reading. I'm just wondering if there are any books, any authors or anything like that that you're looking at right now that you'd recommend?
Yes. The book that I'm reading right now is called The Ministry of the Future. And one of my favorite books is a sci-fi book, but it's I love sci-fi in the sense that it is a way to use our imagination to solve certain problems. And that particular book is looking at how in the future we can solve climate change, and it's very revealing. I've said out loud that I want to be the minister of the future. I want to be that position, and if not, I'm going to make that role happen real soon. But yes, that is one of my favorite books. And the second favorite book, can I add another one?
Yeah, of course.
I think everyone.
We've got book list.
My Bible for this is Stuart Brand, the book of the Long Now, and which was written in 1999. And it really forces you to think long term. So, and he has this framework to kind of extrapolate different things moving in different pace, and how systems can be built in resiliency. And it's a fascinating book, and it never goes out of time, because it is something that is a framework that is very applicable even today.
So that's The Clock of the Long Now, is that correct?
The Clock of the Long Now.
By Stuart Brand. Yep, so Archie will be sharing that, but we'll be adding those to our book list as well. And our last question, which is one of our most important questions. What do you have more space for in 2021, Cecilia?
So I want to dedicate, so I've said this already, but I'm going to repeat. I want to democratize, and I want to empower it through future literacy and future making. And I want to dedicate my time in 2021 and 2022 in making that happen. So building the community, really reaching out to everyone who wants to learn this, but the vocabulary to speak about it, and the capability to make it. And yeah, that's my goal.
That's beautiful, beautiful. And how can we connect with you, even though we're about to share a load of links? Is there a platform? Is there something? I know if Lucas was here, he'd be sharing something in particular, which we will share. Is there some way that you'd recommend, something you'd recommend to connect with you?
So if you're interested in the methodology, check out the Domestica class. I think the link is there. If you are interested in our work, Futurity Studio, it's just futurity.studio, and we have our portfolio there. If you want to know me more as a person, my website is just ceciliatom.com, super simple. And so, yeah, join us in our social media. We periodically, especially on Friday, we have Makers Friday, and we'll share the projects that we're working on that particular day, and that's also always interesting, at least for me.
That is awesome. So we're sharing, Archie's right now sharing links in the chat. We will be wrapping this up, and we'll be sending links in the email. But if you want to get on there, you want to sign up for the course right now, we have signed up for the course, and I know there's a lot of other students on here. It's fantastic. So first up, thank you, Cecilia. Like, really, honestly, thank you so much for being so generous with your time, your love, your passion, all the stuff that you've shown us tonight. It's just been fantastic. I can see smiles. I see drawings on the mural board. That's always a good sign. Also, thank you to everyone for joining us. Thank you. If you haven't heard from us before, it's just amazing that, that we're connecting with people all over the world. We do hope you're safe and well at these times, and you're happy, and you're all good up there and everything like that. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this session as much as we have, and really thank you for staying on a little bit over. Please, 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 we have a form. Send us your feedback. Archie's put it in the chat. It takes a couple of minutes. It makes sure we do a good job. We refine what we're doing. So just so you know, we were sending out too many emails before, so we changed the whole format and architecture of Future now, so we're monthly, so we don't spam anyone. We don't want to spam you, but we really want to share some of the messages our speakers are sharing, and we're learning and evolving what we're doing with the Future of Now. We do check, we do change. You'll see that we're adapting. We're about to share a participant package link with you. It covers all the links where you can connect with Cecilia, learn about our program, download the cards that the guys have created, see what they're up to. It's so inspirational. Also, there's information how you can get in touch with us at More Space for Light, whether related to the programs we run, our training, or learn more about what we're doing as well. There is info on Future of Now that includes insights and books our speakers generously share and recommend every fortnight. There is an incredible list of books on there, trust me. And plus how you can get involved. And we also have links to our sponsors, Mural and Hacker Exchange. Now, next month, we'll be back to our usual midday Asia Pacific slot with, he was on here before, he showed his face and disappeared, Yuri, who is the Chief Rebel Rouser at the Magic Source. Yuri is the technologist, strategist, and futurist as well. And we're going to continue with the future in theme with Yuri. And Yuri's going to expand on some of the insights that Cecilia shared with us today and talk about some really straightforward frameworks that he uses with his clients in regards to understanding future scenarios as well. So we just popped the link in the chat. It's live now, so you can register. If you have any other questions about the session or remote work, get in touch with us at More Space for Light. Get in touch with Cecilia. Her links are all over all of the things that we'll be sharing over the next few days. Until next time, we'll be back next month. Stay safe, stay well, look after each other.
Thank you so much.
Be awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. You take care of yourselves.
Yes, thank you. Look for me on LinkedIn. Love to connect. Bye-bye.